Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing the first installment in what will likely be a very long and many installment series testing out my eyeshadow palettes. So, oh, here she comes. I must say hello. Okay, Freya, now. Oh, she's done. Okay, good. So, when was it? Was it last year or the year before? Oh, I can't remember. It might have been the year before and a little bit of last year. I was doing a series where I tested out all of my makeup stash. All of it. I'd always thought to myself, I'm not going to do my eyeshadow palettes, but once I'd gotten through the rest of my products, I thought, I feel like I have to do my eyeshadow palettes. Like, it's a rite of passage, and also doing the series has taught me a lot about, look, everything beauty related. Now, when it comes to my eyeshadow palette collection, I have a lot of them. I overconsumed for many years, and I have whittled them down a lot over the past few years, but I still have quite a few. I actually have 90. I think that number is off, but on my inventory list, I have 90 eyeshadow palettes. There have been some new ones come into my life that I've not put on my inventory list, so I'd say the number is higher, but we're going with 90 for now, and as I go through each category of eyeshadow palettes, I suppose, I will update that if I have any changes. Now, those 90 eyeshadow palettes equate to 884 individual pans inside the palettes, and that is too much eyeshadow. I want to work on going through all of my eyeshadow palettes so that I can minimize them mindfully. It's fine for me to sit down at the end of the year and go through my makeup collection and declutter stuff that I feel like I don't want to use. But when it comes to eyeshadow palettes, it's quite hard to do like really big declutters. Although in recent past years, I have done really big eyeshadow palette declutters. So I think I've done well, but I think I can do better. And this way of doing it is going to be a bit more mindful because I'm actually testing out the product before I decide whether to keep it or get rid of it. Now, in this video, I am going to start, we're going to go alphabetical. I'm starting with A. So these are all of my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. So I have 8 palettes here. I did have a couple more, but I've decluttered them in previous years. I've tested them all out except one. We'll get to that. And I'm going to let you know my thoughts, and I'm going to let you know what I'm keeping and what I'm getting rid of. And since I'm starting at alphabetical order and I have 90 eyeshadow palettes, you can probably guess that there's going to be a lot more videos in this series. So if you're keen for that, keep an eye out for it, obviously. Hello, Freya. Hello, girl. So when, really? We already did this. We did it. It's done. Okay, you said hello. Now you're done? Okay. Get down. Good girl. Good girl. So before I started, after I'd pulled out all of these eyeshadow palettes, there was one thing that I did to help me work out, like, can I whittle some of this stuff down before I even touch it, basically. So I went through and I took a photo of every eyeshadow palette and I looked at the shades in the palette and I determined, like, are there any shades that I'm simply not going to use because I don't like the way blue or green eyeshadow looks on me? I don't wear black eyeshadow because my eyes are too small. Or is there just another like reason why I won't use a shade? So that helped me to sort of work out, you know, exactly what I was going to be testing. Because let's face it, when I've got 8 palettes, all with 14 eyeshadows in each, we're talking about testing out a lot of eyeshadows, and I have to make it realistic. I don't want it to take me months and months to test out just like, you know, one set of eyeshadow palettes. I wanted to move through them as quickly as I could. So not only did I wear these in my day-to-day life, and tried to whittle them down before I even touched them. I also did like multi looks, so I do like a different look on each eye to get through some of the eyeshadows quickly. I did not photograph any of my looks, and I probably won't because I can't be bothered. I don't want to have to deal with that at the time of, you know, doing my makeup, and I don't want to have to deal with that in post when I'm editing these videos, because no, it's too much. So let's start with the first palette on my list. I am going to be reading from my note. This is the Modern Renaissance palette. When I took an image of this, or like when I assessed the shade selection, I determined that I would use all of the eyeshadows in this palette, so I knew I was going to test it out. This one was released in 2016. I do know the years that these ones, the Anastasia ones, were released. I don't know if I'll be able to nut out that information with all of the eyeshadow palettes that I test out, but we'll see how we go. So it's a 14 pan eyeshadow palette. I used 5 of the shades in here, and then I decided that I was bored of it. I didn't want to use it again, and I was gonna declutter it. When I first started, I started with this palette. This was like the first palette that I worked on. And in my head, I wasn't too sure how many times I was going to use a palette before I determined how I felt about it. After using this, and like I used 5 of the shades, and I was like, I'm going to get rid of it. I think I'd only done 2 looks with it. That's when I sort of came up with the idea that I'm going to try and use the palette at least 3 times before I decide whether I'm going to get rid of it or whether I'm going to keep it. So from this palette, I used Raw Sienna Golden Ochre up here, and golden ochre and red ochre, of course, because red. And the shimmers I used were Tempera and Primavera. So that is these 2 here. This one doesn't look like a shimmer. It looks matte in the pan, but it does have, it's like a pearl kind of shade, or like pearl finish. And Primavera is, it's just so boring. Like, it doesn't look like that on my eyelid. Now that, because of my age, I have, you know, more texture on my eyelids, and shades like this, they just look so flat and boring. So for me, they were just, you know, it wasn't it. I was just so uninspired. And the only other shimmery shade in the palette is Vermeer, which is this one here. And once I'd sort of gone through these 2, I was like, this is so boring. A lot of the shades in the palette are matte. Antique Bronze does have a sheen to it, like, I think is it called Tempera? Yeah. So this one has a sheen to it, but that's too dark for me. Like, I'm just not going to use it. So I decided that I didn't want it anymore, and I'm going to get rid of it because I don't want to wear it. There's nothing in the palette that's exciting to me, and I'm not going to choose that palette over another palette. Next up is Subculture. This one was released in 2017, and yes, I do have one of the like original formulas, so the dodgy ones. So when I took a photo of this, I determined that the shades that I wouldn't use would be like Axis, Untamed, and Edge. I don't know why I didn't mark Destiny, because that's like a sort of khaki green. And the rest I was like, yeah, I'll use them. But then when it came time, like I put this one away and it came time to use this, I was like, I'm not interested in this palette. I have no desire to revisit these days of like struggling to make these shades work. I did love Axis, like color-wise. Just look at it. Like, it is an absolutely gorgeous, rich, dark green. It's like it reminds me of like dark velvety green. But I know that this does not apply well and the color does not suit me. I'm not gonna lie, swatch like that, I'm a little sad to say that I'm not gonna keep this, but I'm just not. I'm never gonna wear it. Adorn was funny as well. This one's kind of like I mean, they swatch really nicely, but I don't, like, they don't apply well to the eye. They get hard pan. This one is electric, so they're the metallics. Where is it? That one and that one. But overall, I'm never going to use this. It's going to sit in my collection. What am I going to do with it? Like, I don't want to collect old eyeshadow palettes unless they really like mean something to me. While these Anastasia palettes are like, I guess, a part of my makeup history and I have fond memories of them, I don't want to keep them, and I certainly don't want to use them. Next up is Prism. So this one was released in 2017 as well. I used 8 shades in this palette. When I was first taking a look at it, I had decided that I was definitely not going to use Obsidian. I just don't use black. Sphere, I was never going to use that either. Like, this is kind of like a fluorescent yellow. Cool shade if you're into, like, you know, bright colors, but I'm not going to wear it. Osiris and Throne, I also knew that I wouldn't wear, although these, like, Throne in particular is really nice. So that one's Throne. It's like a black and green. It is beautiful. So on this angle where I'm looking at it, it's like blackened, but on the front where you guys can see it, it's that beautiful emerald green. And then this one, which was Osiris, again, really, really dark, rich blue with sort of a, not black, but it's sort of gray, really dark bluish gray on the angle. Really pretty shade. I knew that I wasn't going to use them, so straight away I was like, there's 4 shades in this palette that I don't want to use. Then when I opened the palette and started using it, I decided, like, I was never going to use Dimension. It's a beautiful shade. It's just, I have to determine, like, am I legitimately going to reach for this? And I'm not, because it's just not really a tone that I think looks good on my skin. The shades that I did use were Lure, which is an absolute favorite of mine and has the most use. I love this shade, and I did consider trying to dig this shade out of the palette to put in an individual, like, eyeshadow palette, and then I came to my senses, because let's be real, I'm never gonna reach for that. And also I'm most likely gonna break it trying to get it out. Like, I'm not doing that. It just goes against everything that I'm trying to do when it comes to whittling down my collection. I just want to keep eyeshadow palettes that I can pull out and use as a whole. I don't want to have, like, you know, stuff floating around here and there. So Lure I love, and I'm sad to see go. I also used Saturn, Eden, and Parallel. So that's these shades here. I do really like these sort of terracotta pinkish kind of shades. They're really nice as well. But again, like, if I could have these shades in a little quad, I'd be very happy, and I'd probably take, like, maybe Eternal. Maybe that's the one that I would keep to make, like, a nice little warm with a pop of cool quad. But I can't do, well, I can do that, but I'm not going to do it. So Eternal was one of the shimmer shades that I used. I also used Pyramid, Dimension, and Lucid. So that one's Lucid, and I did actually use this one. Oh, I just love filming in natural light. It's just so convenient. So I did use Dimension. I don't actually remember using it. Like, that just shows how memorable it is. I determined that I wasn't going to use at least a quarter of the palette, and I wasn't really inspired to use it that much more often, except, like, these 4 shades here. These were the ones that I was like, if I'm going to reach for this palette, I'm gonna go for these all the time. And that doesn't make for a palette worth keeping, in my opinion. So Prism is going as well. Moving into 2008, we have the first palette release of the year. It is Soft Glam. So this one, I determined that there was really only one shade that I would probably not use in the palette, and that was Noir, because It's black. When it comes to the mattes, I used, I think, almost all of them. So Dusty Rose, Sienna, Burnt Orange, and Mulberry, which are here. Orange Soda and Rustic, which are those ones. So it looks like the only one that I didn't use was Cypress Umber, and of course the black. Hang on, I'm having a flashback here. Yeah, there we go. So Tempera, this one here, is also in Modern Renaissance, which is this one here. And also I know that Noir, the black in here, is in one of the other palettes as well. There's some double ups in there. Anyway, I like the mattes. The only one that I actually made a note of was Burnt Orange, that it needs building, but that's just music to my ears because I like my eyeshadows to be softer these days. I'm not into putting on really super heavy pigment and then having to like blend it out for 20 minutes. I don't have time for that. I don't want to have time for it. That was all good. I was happy with the mattes, and there was a wide variety in there that I was going to use. I felt like the balance of mattes and like shimmery, interesting shades was quite good. Sultry, Glistening, Bronze, and Fairy. So Sultry, Glistening, Bronze, and Fairy. I might just swatch some of these. The thing that I didn't love about these shimmers, so these two I really like, and I think they look beautiful on the eyelid. These two are much more like subtle. I'd say like they're kind of like a satin finish, and that's not really my preference. I do prefer a bit more sparkle and a bit more like light reflection than Glistening and Fairy give, but they're nice shades, and I think they like complement the mattes really well. So this palette I really enjoyed. I did 3 looks with this, and I would have done a 4th, but I was like, you could use that palette for a couple of weeks and still be having fun with it, but that's not what this is about. It's about, you know, testing stuff out. So keep it and move on. Second ABH palette released in 2018 was Norvina. So this one, again, I like this color story. So this palette consists of like, you know, earthy kind of colors, pinks and purples, essentially. You do sort of like Passion has a little bit of like a red hint to it. And also I will say Soul kind of looks a bit bluish, but it's kind of periwinkle-ish. It pulls quite purple on me, so you know, I'm cool with it. Initially felt like I would use all of the shades in this palette, and I would. So I used all of the mattes in this palette, and what I quite like about this palette is we've got all the mattes on the bottom and then all of the like shimmers, sparkles, metallics, all that stuff on the top. I really like that. It's just nice. The notes that I made were love. I wouldn't use that often, but it's like, it's not a really bright garish pink, which I like. It's a bit more muted. It does have pretty good color payoff though, which is not actually my preference. And base is one that I reckon, you know, if I was using this palette fairly regularly, I would actually end up hitting pan on that one first, because I can use it to set my eyeshadow base, which is really good. The shimmers that I used were Dreamer, Summer, Celestial, Dazzling, and Drama. I didn't show you that very well. These ones and these 3, I did write a note that Drama is a bit flat and it's like quite dark for me. The only place I would ever use this is right on the outer corner. Dazzling, I really, really loved. My note was gorgeous. I just love these like shimmery nude shades. And Summer is very metallic on the eyelid, which I also like. And I mean, look, she's boring and I love her. The shade that I'm surprised I didn't reach for was Rose Gold, because I mean, it's a beautiful like rosy gold shade. And a shade in this palette that I have never used, I haven't even swatched it, is Wild Child, which is this pink one here. I'm just gonna get my fingers clean. Let's give it a maiden swatch. Let's do it. That's pretty. It's like a soft sort of Barbie pinkish, like baby Barbie pink. So yeah, I like this palette and I'm keeping it. The final release in 2018 was the Sultry palette. When I, was assessing whether I would use this palette or not, I'm pretty sure that the only one I said I wouldn't use was Noir, and I did actually end up using it. I don't know why this shade is in this palette. It's stupid. My note for this is a shade Bloom. My note was blur, and it is blur. I don't understand why it's in here. The mattes that I used were Bloom, Dystopian, Noir, and Birch. I did not use Twig, Slate, or Fresh, because I already knew that they're going to be fine. Dystopian, my note was, this is as dark as I would need to go with like a color in the outer corner. And Noir, when that's applied to the eyelid and like blended out in the outer corner in the only way that I would ever use it, it looks so similar to Dystopian, but it's more harsh and like it doesn't blend as nicely. So Bloom and Noir I will never use, like not interested. However, where it's at is the shimmers and the sparkles. So I used all of the shimmer shades in the palette except for Ember. I'm just going to swatch them for you because I think they're really quite beautiful. I don't know what happened there. My mouth was like, I'm leaving. They're kind of cool toned or neutral, but very sparkly and very, very pretty. I will swatch Ember as well just because we're here, but just know I didn't use it. For me, they're neutral or they kind of hint on being cool toned and they've got beautiful light reflect. I definitely don't think, like, there's some redundancy in here, if you ask me. Like, just, it is what it is, but I do like it and I can see myself using it. I definitely hate that pink and the black. And especially since we've already seen Noir in another palette, I'm like, just why? Anyway, that one I am keeping. So now I'm 3 for 3. I've got 3 that I'm getting rid of and I've got 3 that I'm keeping. It's the next 2 that are gonna be the deciding factor of if my declutter went well or not. Before I get on to the next 2, I actually want to talk about 2 other palettes that I did have but I have decluttered, and that's just for continuity's sake. Since we've been talking about the years that they released. We have Riviera, which released in March of 2019. And then we have Alyssa Edwards, which released in May of 2019. I had both of them. I've decluttered them, as I mentioned. Next, we have a release that was in August of 2019. That is Jackie Aina. I do love the packaging of this one. It is gorgeous. When I initially looked at this palette, I was pretty confident that I was not going to want to use the like pinky shades here. It's just, I don't really love these sort of tones for pink eyeshadows. I will swatch them for you. So we've got Supreme here and Pinker. I just don't, they're not me colors. I don't find them flattering on the eye for me, and yeah, I wouldn't wear them. However, I did end up using them. I used all of the mattes in this palette. I'm pretty sure. Credit, Edges, and Ginger. Yeah, I did. So the other mattes are Bigwig, Edges, Credit, and Ginger. These guys are definitely my favorites. I will say this though, this palette is very clearly designed for people with deeper skin tones, and I respect that. These, they pack a punch with their pigment. Even Big Wig, I'll just swatch them. Let's do it. So for me to use this palette, I have to be a little bit more mindful about how much I'm using, where I'm putting it, blending, stuff like that. Big Wig, that didn't swatch very well, but it does go on the eye nicely. I do actually like this shade. And if I want to wear color, like this is the sort of color that I want to wear. I want to wear like, you know, beautiful, vibrant, interesting purple shades. I find that they're usually the most flattering on my eyes. Or red. I love a red. So the matte's pretty good. Only 2 shades that I'm not going to reach for, even though I did actually end up testing them out. It looks like I also used all of the shimmers as well. Is that right? No. 3, 6, 7. No. I've written down 7 and there's 8. So which one didn't I use? I didn't use this one, Lituation. That reminds me of like The Situation from Jersey Shore. Anyone? I didn't use this shade, but I think I probably would in the future. Did I make notes about any of these? No, but this one, which is Zam, I think that's how you pronounce it. Absolutely stunning. Also, shout out to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word. Surely I am. Wiggley's, is that? Oh, I don't know. I feel a bit cringe saying that. That shade is absolutely stunning. And I'm so glad that there are actually more shades in the palette that I really enjoy, because I would cry if I had to get rid of that shade. This one is sponsored and it's one of those like greeny brown pigments, which is old school, but I like it. And I think I'll also swatch Trust Issues, which is this one here, because that is also a pretty shade. It's a pearl with like that yellowy, soft, like very subtle lavender hint to it. Really nice shade. Love it. Really enjoy this palette and I'm going to keep it. The last Anastasia Beverly Hills palette that I have is the Carli Bybel palette. So this one released in October of 2019. So they really pumped out the collaboration palettes that year. They did Alyssa Edwards in May, Jackie Aina in August, and Carli in October. None of the girls got to like have their moment in the sun, really, which was a shame. And that was when I lost a lot of respect for Anastasia Beverly Hills. Also, I'm pretty sure the next palette that they released was... it had extra eyeshadows in it. I think it had two more in it. So it wasn't the same, you know, like if you line all of these palettes up, they're all the exact same dimensions, all that jazz. I'm a bit anal like that. So I wasn't okay with it and I didn't buy it. And it wasn't difficult for me to not buy it because I was kind of ticked off that they had released not only so many palettes that year, like that year they released 4 palettes, and I'm pretty sure that was the first year that they had released so many. Previously they were releasing, I think, 2 palettes a year, then it went up to 3, then it was 4, and then I was like, it's too much. But also then they were releasing like the big Norvina desk palettes and just no. So on first look at this palette, I thought, yep, I'm probably going to use all of the shades at some stage. The only matte that I didn't use was Cindy, which is like this peachy kind of shade, which I would say is a little bit similar to what was going on in the Prism palette with, I think, Eden. It looks pretty similar to Eden. Let's actually swatch them side by side because I'm curious. They're very similar. This one's just a little bit more like a bit brighter. This has a bit more like neutral tones in it. So I didn't use Cindy, but that's fine because I think I will in the future. And the metallics that I use today, I am wearing this palette. I'm wearing Aura on my eyelids. And I've also used Moo, Mandela, and Libra. There we go. These are really beautiful shades. I quite enjoyed them. I'd say this is as dark as I would go, but it still looks nice on the eyelid. The shades that I'm actually not too sure that I will use are these ones here, because they pull a bit blue in the palette and I'm just not sure that they will actually get used. And also, what is this? This is so redundant. You've got two of the same shades with a slightly different finish. This one has more purple sparkle in it. I don't think I would reach for them, but I really like this section of the palette here. I love. So these shades down the bottom and then these ones, just gorgeous. Also, I do like Bowie. I will say Bowie is a good shade and helps to like deepen up a look without, like, if you don't want to use a red shade, that one helps to deepen up the look. So I did really like this palette. I am ready to like put it down, and I've actually done 4 looks with this because I wore it again today, but I am going to keep this. I do think in terms of what I have kept, if anything was to be decluttered in the future, Carli Bybel might be the first to go. And I won't lie, I did consider getting rid of this one to even the playing field for what I'm keeping and what I'm decluttering, because so far I'm keeping 4, this one makes 5, and I'm getting rid of 3. But I thought to myself, there is more that I want to do with this palette. Like, I still want to use it. It's probably going to be a year before I finish this freaking project and actually get to use it again, but that's not the point. The point is there are still things in this palette that are gravitating me towards using it. The goal here is definitely to get rid of the things that I don't want, but I also don't want to get rid of stuff just for the sake of getting rid of it, especially if I can still see myself wanting to use the palette. So this one stays. I am keeping 5 and I am getting rid of 3. Before I wrap this video up, I do want to introduce what I'll be testing next. I'm moving on from A to B. I'm going to be doing my Bare Minerals palettes, and I've got one by Terry. This is a duo, but it's not really. It's a single pan with 2 shades. This was a custom one that I made at Mechaland. I'm going to try and do these videos monthly. There might be times when I need a bit longer, or I can do it a bit quicker. I don't know. I think like this will be fine. I will have the next video up in October, no worries. But like when I get to C and I've got like all my ColourPop stuff to get through, that might actually have to be split up over a couple of months because there's a lot going on there. And it's not just ColourPop. Like I've got Coloured Rain, and I'm sure I've got other brands eyeshadow palette brands starting with C. But yeah, I'm gonna be getting through these. I will say some of these palettes also, like when I get to bigger palettes, I'm not too sure how I'm gonna manage that. This one's fine. It's 12 pans. It's just a chunky monkey. And this one is actually the same size as the ABH, so there's no problem there. This one is bigger. This has 18 shades in it, even though it's a tiny little baby. So I might not do like, and obviously I'm not going to do 3 looks with this. And I'm not going to do 3 looks with my Regal wardrobe because there's only 8 eyeshadows in there. So yeah, just bear with me. This is a big project, and I haven't ironed out all of the kinks yet. I just ironed out the kinks with the ABH palettes and I will work out the rest as I go. I'll make it work for myself. I am excited to be moving on to the next group of eyeshadow palettes, but I'm going to leave it there for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you still have any of these ABH palettes, and if you also have the feeling of pry them out of my cold dead hands, I dare you. The boyfriend is still home. Hello. Hello. I do want to say a massive thank you to my channel members for supporting me. I really appreciate you guys. And I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back in a month-ish with another one of these videos, the next installment. But after that, like coming up soon, it's going to be my advent calendar videos, I believe. So that's a big job. Pray for me. This is also a big job, but I'm enjoying it. It feels good to be getting it done. I'm not going to lie. Also, if you're like panning eyeshadows at the moment, let me know what you're doing. How's it going? How's it going for you? I'm not panning any eyeshadows this year. I don't think I'll be able to pan them next year either, because I think I'm still going to be working on this project for a good chunk of it. Look, I've got 90 eyeshadow palettes to get through, okay? Technically more, but it is what it is. We'll get there eventually. All right, guys, I'm going to stop waffling. I'm going to go. Thank you so much for joining me. Are you ready to say goodbye? Look, you just know. I reckon you know the words. Oh, did Dad make a noise? Dad might have food, so she must check. I think Freya knows the words that I say when it's time to say hello and say goodbye. She's the smart one. Hello. Oh. All right, guys, I'm going to leave that there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye. You had a funny one.